week it's been. We have a general election. At last, the Labour Party realised that every time they kept saying no, we don't want a general election, it was actually beginning to damage their support even amongst Labour voters. So Corbyn gave in, saying he was happy that no deal was off the table. And we have a general election, and I was quite pleased before the official period starts, which is not until next Tuesday. I was very pleased on Thursday night to get a caller into my LBC show. Yes, it was Donald from Washington. So how did that come about? Well, when he was over in June for a state visit, I met him and I said to him then, I said, look, I'm doing this radio show. Would you come on one day? Yeah, he said, no problem. And it's no great secret that we are friendly with each other. So it made quite an impact. I think people were very surprised that the interview lasted for nearly half an hour, which is a very, very long period of time. And he did say some very interesting things, I think quite impactful things. I mean, the first was this whole business about the National Health Service. Jeremy Corbyn's attack line constantly is, if we leave the customs union, we do a trade deal with the USA, that means American companies will come and buy up the National Health Service. And this is the big fear that he's trying to spread amongst the population. Quite conveniently forgetting, of course, that it was the Blair government that privatised quite a large chunk of the NHS when they were in power in the earlier part of Blair's years. Trump said that the National Health Service is not part of the trade deal, and that, I think, takes away a big attack line from Jeremy Corbyn, though I noticed this morning John McDonnell saying they don't believe Donald Trump. Well, that's a much weaker position than they had before. But the other thing he said that I think really was very strong and very interesting is that he thought, under the terms of what Boris Johnson is trying to do, it'd be very, very difficult to do a trade deal between the USA and the UK. Just listen to the words that President Trump had to say about that.
We're far and away the largest economy in the world, and we want to do trade with UK, and they want to do trade with us. And to be honest with you, this deal, under certain aspects of the deal, you can't do it. You can't do it. You can't trade. Well, I mean, we can't make a trade deal with the UK, and we can be, because I think we can do many times the numbers that we're doing right now, and certainly much bigger numbers that you're doing under the European Union.
Well, so I'm like you.
I know Boris wants to be very careful with that.
Now, since then, Boris Johnson and others are saying it's just not true. But we're in a very, very strange place. We're in a place where it seems to me that almost no media commentators have actually read what is in the withdrawal agreement. Wall-to-wall commentary saying that actually this gets Brexit done. Boris now telling us it could all be over by Christmas. I think we've heard that in this country once before. And even questions that I get asked by journalists where they clearly have got no grasp of the detail whatsoever. I'm not even convinced that Boris gets this detail. After all, he gave completely the wrong answer in the House of Commons when he was asked about people exporting from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. He didn't seem to know. They'd have to fill in customs declaration forms. And of course, when he was asked the question on fisheries by Owen Paterson, he said, we get back 100% control. Well, I tell you what, Boris, read clause 72 of the political declaration. It makes it very, very clear that the common fisheries policy continues pretty much as before. So we're in this weird world where, with a country exhausted by the fact that Brexit has gone on, the negotiations have gone on for over 3 years, a Prime Minister saying, I'll get it done by Christmas, is very tempting. And let me promise you this. If Boris Johnson was offering a genuine Brexit, I would be only too happy. I set the Brexit party up because clearly the thing was going off the rails. We had a Prime Minister who didn't believe in it in any way at all. And I think our success was to get rid of that Prime Minister, to get the Conservative Party to vote for someone who said that they really would get us out by the 31st of October. And of course, Boris kept on saying that we must keep no deal on the table as part of our negotiating strategy. And when the Benn Act was passed, that stopped us from doing that, he called it the Surrender Act. So I promise you this, if Boris was going to deliver us a proper Brexit, I would be in support. But all this does is take us out of one EU treaty and sign us back in to another EU treaty. We enter into a period of negotiations that will last up until the end of 2022. Monsieur Barnier, who of course has been reappointed to the role, Monsieur Barnier has said the next phase of negotiations will last for at least 3 years. We're kicking the can down the road. We stay for the next 3 years fully part of all the laws, regulations and legal judgments that are being made by the European Union. We stay part of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. And by the way, if we did sign up in 3 years to a new trade deal with the EU, the arbiter of that deal for all time going on would still be the European Court of Justice. We stay, unbelievably, with liabilities to the European Investment Bank, liabilities that could be up to 40 billion sterling. We are not leaving the European Union properly. We're leaving it in name only. And what Boris is presenting simply is not Brexit. And it's certainly, far from getting Brexit done, just launches into a new phase of negotiations that'll be as long, if not longer, than the agony of the last 3 years that we have been through. And it's for those reasons that I can't just stand aside after 25 years and allow Brexit to be sold out the way that it is being. So we launched our campaign on Friday. I made it perfectly clear that Boris Johnson could change his mind. After all, he's good at that, isn't he? Because twice he voted against Mrs May's treaty, the third time he voted for it. I've made it clear that I still believe that the right way forward here is to have a Brexit alliance. No one party owns all the Brexit voters, and I think if you had a vehicle that brought together Conservative leavers, Brexit Party leavers, Labour leavers, if you did that, then I think it would win overwhelmingly the general election. But for Boris and the Conservatives to unite the Tory tribe, to try and take politics back to normal as they see it, just doesn't work. I'm not going to see Brexit sold out. I don't want us to be signed up to a new treaty. I think that's absolutely appalling. I really do think it's awful. In fact, we'll finish up for years with taxation without representation. We'll finish up with no voice, no vote, no veto. We'll even finish up with demands for a second referendum to rejoin, which would probably win. So we launched on Friday, made it clear we have 600 people ready to go into the field, and they are ready, and we're funded. And tomorrow there'll be 500 of our candidates coming to London. They will sign their nomination papers when they're here, and then we're off. We're off on the road. We start off on Tuesday. We'll be up in the East Midlands. On Wednesday, we'll go to Workington, because of course there is this mythical Workington man, which is a Northern Labour voter that apparently is going to vote Conservative. I think there's much more chance of those people voting for the Brexit Party. We're then down to South Wales for a couple of days, and then starting off the next week up in the northeast. You'll notice all the areas we're going to are Labour areas, whilst the press focus on the differences between Boris Johnson and myself. Let's just remember one thing very, very clearly. There are 5 million Labour Leave voters who have now been completely betrayed by the Labour Party. The Labour Party now want a second referendum with a choice of Remain or staying inside the customs union and the single market. It's Remain v Remain. And I think those voters are absolutely our number one target. Now, it's quite daunting in some ways when you face a press that is wall-to-wall opposed to you, although reminiscent for me of 2015 when I led UKIP and I was told that of course we'd split the vote and we'd let Labour in. And in fact, the effect of UKIP in 2015 was that we stopped Ed Miliband from becoming Prime Minister. David Cameron would not have got a majority had it not been for UKIP taking more votes from Labour than it took from the Tories. So much of what is being written has been proved to be wrong before. Much of what is being said is being done without people actually having studied the documents. And I'm going to make sure that not only in this election do voters have the opportunity to vote for a party that actually believes in Brexit, as opposed to Mr. Johnson's Remainer Brexit, but I also want to make sure that the country understands what this so-called deal, what this new EU treaty will actually cost the country, what it means in terms of the future of our industries, all of which, from financial services to fisheries, will still have to apply EU legislation, even after, in theory, we have left. And I intend in the next few weeks to traverse the country and to do that job, which left me with a decision. What do? Do I stand? Do I go to a constituency and spend 4 or 5 days a week there? Or do I spend my time over the course of the next nearly 6 weeks going around the country? And I think, frankly, I am much better off, and the Brexit cause is much better off, if I'm out there supporting the 600 men and women who've put themselves forward to fight in this campaign, and that is what I'm going to do. If I'm tied to a constituency, I can't do that. So I'm not going to stand in a seat myself. It's more important that we get Brexit Party MPs into Parliament than it is just for me, myself, to attempt to get in there. And you know what? DUP won 10 seats last time around and have had actually an enormously powerful position in the last Parliament. I think the Brexit Party can do the same in the next Parliament. And whatever happens in this election, I want people to know the truth. I want them to know that Boris's so-called Great New Deal is actually Mrs. May's old treaty. It isn't Brexit. It doesn't work. And by the time they go on December the 12th to vote, I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that.